Wetling.
Got one of the biggest cheers of the day from the crowd. No doubt they're feeling the heat as well.
Okay, so we're getting confirmation that in this situation in play,
Jannik Sinner was moments away from collapsing. His legs were cramping, his movement was gone, and the match was slipping away. Then suddenly, play stopped. The roof closed, and Sinner got a break that may have saved his entire tournament. Was it just the rules doing their job, or was this the luckiest timing of the Australian Open so far? Let's break down what really happened. January 24th in Melbourne was not a normal tennis day. The heat was intense, relentless, and draining, not just for players, but for fans sitting in the stands as well. Conditions like this are exactly why the Australian Open has one of the strictest heat policies in tennis. The tournament uses something called the heat stress scale, which measures temperature, humidity, wind, and radiant heat. When it reaches level 5, the highest level, play on outdoor courts must be suspended for player safety. That rule exists to protect players from serious health risks, and on this day, the conditions were pushing dangerously close to that line. Jannik Sinner came into this match as the defending Australian Open champion, full of confidence and expectation. His opponent, American qualifier Elliot Spizzirri, was playing on one of the biggest stages of his career. Early on, things looked fairly routine. Sinner was solid, composed, and in control for stretches, but as the match wore on, the heat began to tell, and it told far more on one player than the other. By the third set, the signs were impossible to ignore. Sinner's movement started to slow. His footwork, usually sharp and precise, became heavy and labored. He began grabbing at his legs between points. The cramps were coming, first subtly, then aggressively. At one point, he could barely push off to chase down balls. His body language changed completely. The calm, composed champion looked tense, uncomfortable, and visibly struggling just to stay upright. This wasn't gamesmanship. This wasn't exaggeration. This was a player fighting his own body in brutal heat. And the match was turning. As Spizzirri sensed the opportunity, he stepped up. He extended rallies. He made Sinner move side to side. And every extra step looked painful for the defending champion. At this stage, many watching believed Sinner was heading toward one of two outcomes, either a loss or a retirement. He was that close. Then, everything stopped. What made that moment so jarring wasn't just the stoppage, it was how sudden and rare it felt. In a sport built around momentum, rhythm, and endurance, interruptions like this almost never come at such a critical point. Tennis players are trained to suffer through discomfort, cramping, fatigue, dizziness. These are things players are expected to manage unless they physically cannot continue. That's why fans immediately reacted, because everyone watching could feel it. The match had reached a breaking point. Sinner wasn't simply uncomfortable, he was deteriorating in real time. His serve motion was shortened. His recovery steps were slower, and the longer rallies went, the clearer it became that his body was losing the battle against the conditions. In most matches, this is where champions either dig deeper or go down swinging. There's usually no reset button, but the Australian Open is unique. No other Grand Slam deals with heat this extreme, this regularly, and no other major has a policy this strict. The heat stress scale doesn't care who's winning, who's losing, or whose world number. 1. When it hits level 5, the decision is out of the player's hands. That's what makes this moment so complicated. It wasn't a discretionary call. It wasn't an umpire showing sympathy. It was an automated safety trigger, cold, clinical, and unavoidable. And yet, because it arrived at the exact moment Sinner appeared physically broken, it felt personal, not by intent, but by consequence. The pause didn't just stop play, it froze a turning point. It interrupted momentum, and it rewrote the immediate future of the match. In tennis, timing is everything, and this timing changed everything. Right as Sinner looked like he might not be able to continue, officials intervened. The heat stress scale had officially reached level 5. That meant mandatory action. Play was suspended on outdoor courts and on Rod Laver Arena. The roof was closed. Players were sent off court. The crowd waited. And suddenly, Sinner had time, something he desperately needed. This pause lasted around 10 minutes. No medical treatment was allowed, no coaching. But the effects were massive. Sinner was able to cool down. He stretched. He reset mentally. And most importantly, his body temperature dropped. What looked like the beginning of the end had just turned into a lifeline. In extreme heat, cramping isn't just about fitness. It's about the body overheating. When your internal temperature drops, even slightly, muscle control can return. That's exactly what appeared to happen. When play resumed under the closed roof, conditions were noticeably different. The air was cooler. The environment was more stable. And suddenly, Sinner looked alive again. Not perfect, not dominant, but functional. And that changed the match. After the restart, Sinner slowly began to find his rhythm again. His movement improved, his serve stabilized. He started holding his ground in rallies that minutes earlier he simply couldn't survive. Sposuri, meanwhile, had lost momentum. What was working for him before the stoppage didn't have the same effect under the new conditions. Point by point, the balance shifted. Sinner broke back. He steadied himself. And eventually, he closed out the match. From the brink of collapse to victory.
I struggled physically a bit today. We saw this. I got lucky with the heat rule. They closed the roof.
What made this moment even more interesting was what Sinner said afterward. He didn't pretend it was all part of the plan. He didn't act like nothing happened. Instead, he admitted it openly. He said he got lucky. That single word fueled the entire debate, because when the defending champion calls his own survival luck, fans start asking questions. Here's where opinions split. On one side, people argue this was simply the rule book doing its job. The heat stress scale exists for a reason. Player safety comes first. The stoppage wasn't optional, it was mandatory. On the other side, fans point to the timing. The pause came exactly when Sinner was breaking down. Not earlier, not later, but right at the moment he looked finished. And because the roof closure changed the playing conditions so dramatically, some believe it gave Sinner a second life he may not have earned on the court alone. That's where the phrase "suspiciously convenient" started circulating online. Let's be clear about one thing: nothing illegal happened. The rule was applied correctly. Officials followed protocol. The heat stress scale hit level 5 and action was taken. But controversy in sports isn't always about rules being broken. Sometimes it's about how rules interact with moments. And this moment felt dramatic, sudden, and decisive. If the heat spike had come 10 minutes later, would Sinner still be in the tournament? If it came 10 minutes earlier, would anyone be talking about it? That uncertainty is why this story exploded. From Elliot Sposuri's perspective, this was brutal. He had momentum. He had an opponent in physical trouble. And then the entire environment changed. To his credit, he didn't accuse anyone of wrongdoing. He acknowledged the timing felt strange, but accepted that the rule applied to everyone equally. Still, it's hard not to wonder how different the outcome might have been without the stoppage. That's sport. Sometimes the margins aren't about shots, but circumstances. Sinner moves on. That's the fact. But the narrative around his campaign shifted dramatically in this one match. Instead of dominant defending champion, the story became survivor. He showed resilience. He showed honesty. But he also showed vulnerability, and in a tournament as demanding as the Australian Open, that matters. This match raised real questions. Can Sinner handle extreme conditions deep into the tournament? Will the heat play a bigger role as matches get longer and tougher? And will opponents try to push him physically, knowing what they saw? The answers won't come from debate. They'll come on court. The heat stress scale didn't cheat anyone. The officials didn't bend the rules, and Jannik Sinner didn't ask for help. But sometimes rules don't just protect players. They change history. On January 24th, one rule didn't just pause a match. It may have saved a title defense. So now I want to hear from you. Was this just smart player safety? Or did the timing give Sinner an advantage he didn't deserve? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this debate isn't going away anytime soon.